Hey, Sparkers! Tudo bem com vocês? E aí, galera? Bom, meu nome é Pedro Lage, eu sou líder da SPAC e hoje a gente tá com uma live, cara, imperdível. Sério, tipo assim, cara, o conteúdo aqui de altíssimo nível. Se você que ficou aí até então, vale ressaltar que essa live ela não vai ficar mais disponível. Ah, Pedro, mas vocês estavam disponibilizando Horizon, Infinitude. Mas pois é, agora a gente não vai mais. Quem tá aqui ao vivo vai pegar, quem não pegou não pega mais. E as próximas lives também serão assim. Mas eu tô aqui hoje só como intruso, tá? Hoje não sou eu que sou a estrela da parada, eu só vim dar um recado para vocês. O Kevinho vai falar já já aqui com o nosso convidado que simplesmente teve a melhor engenharia do mundo de 2019. Então, cara, isso é conteúdo de qualidade. Mas antes disso, eu queria falar, até o Kevin, me fala aí, Kevin, será que dá pra ver aqui? Acho que dá, né, cara?
Dá.
Cara, simplesmente lançamos a maior novidade, né, Fãs? Até pergunta pro Ben, o Kevin, se ele já viu algum aplicativo, alguma escuderia com aplicativo. Tipo, fala pra ele que aqui no Brasil não teve, se ele já viu alguma escuderia fora do Brasil com isso.
So Ben, Pedro is asking you to if you already saw some scuderias with some apps into the world, because here in Brazil we are the first ones. Do you already saw some other scuderias do that?
You want me to sell the app? Okay. Highly recommend everyone checks out the app internationally, worldwide. I'll give it my vote for the best F1 schools app of 2022. Don't want to miss it. Make sure you download it.
Yeah. So I am pretty sure that this is probably one of the first ones. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's it, Pedro.
Show de bola. Aí pra galera. Aí, Kevin, se quiser trazer pra galera que não fala inglês aí, né?
Yeah, so people who are looking at us that only speaks in English, we have launched a app on the Play Store where you can find all the rules, all the data sheets, score cards, everything that you need to be a good F1 in schools team are on this app. So check it out on our Instagram and download it, and hopefully you will get some knowledge over there. So that's it.
Show de bola. Então, galera, quem quiser é só baixar, tá lá no nosso Instagram e depois vai estar aqui no link da descrição. Então, cara, faz o favor de baixar, fortaleça a comunidade. E agora eu vou sair como intruso. Thank you, Ben. Bye bye. E eu vou meter o pé aqui que agora é com o Kevin. Valeu, rapaziada. Até mais.
So there you go. Let's start that. And as Pedro said here today, we have a special guest. The guy who gets the best engineering on 2020 or 2018. I am not sure.
19.
19. Oh, it's the middle one. I always forget that. So please, Benjamin, introduce yourself and let's rock it.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Galvin, and I was the graphics designer as part of Team Ascension. Who, as Gavin just said, we won the best engine in 2019 and also came fifth in the world, as well as having a nomination for best scrutineered. After the competition, I was one of the founders of Off the Track, where I continue to be involved and upload the podcast and run the live streaming for the team.
Yeah, so that's it. Benjamin, I would like you to talk about your trajectory on F1, because at least here in Brazil we all start on high school, so we have the opportunity to join on a team on high school. And how was that there into Australia? How was that? And it's like you joined it, and after that you was going to the World Finals, or you have competed before and after one or two or some time you got classified to the World Finals. How was that?
Yeah, so it's a very similar thing in Australia where it is a high school only competition. So it's from year 7 to year 12 in Australia. And I began the competition in year 8. So I believe I was about 13 or 14 at the time when I joined my first team. And that was actually a development class team that went to the state finals, and we placed third and didn't progress any further. After that, I formed a team called Pentessalate with 4 other members, 3 of which were in Ascension. And that team ended up going to the national finals on the first run, but only placed 4th and then progressed to the world finals. It took us one more season after that, where we came second at the national finals and qualified for the world finals as part of a collaboration team. And the team we collaborated with was Vectory, and they placed 3rd overall at the national finals. And we knew Vectory beforehand because they're a fellow New South Wales state team. And we knew Imogen previously from competition. So the collaboration was quite good in that front, where we already knew the team that we were going to collaborate with.
Yeah, I believe that being like knowing the team that you will be collaborating with, it helps a lot because sometimes here on our school we have a collaborative team that will be competing on these world finals, and like it's hard to do a great job when you are like a lot of 1,000 of kilometers away of them, and you cannot be in person designing, getting the things ready to the competition and things like that. So getting that is pretty great. And you said that you was the graphic designer of the team, right?
Yes, I was.
Yes. So can you tell us about how was the process of making the Scuderia? Because we know that the Scuderia branding, the colors, logos, and things like that, it's basically the most important thing, because if you don't have an image, a good image, you cannot be remembered and things like that, and going on and on. So how was the process of designing the branding and getting the colors, logos, and things like that? How is the process to get a good branding and things like that?
So my design process always began with a team name first, before anything else was picked. So with Pentessalate, it was probably the trickier brief of the two, because it was a made-up word. We took 2 pre-existing Latin terms, being pent, which is 5, and tessellate, which is to connect a bunch of shapes together. And we took those 2 terms, combined them together, and tried to form a branding around that. And the branding worked, but it did take a lot of refinement over the course of the competition. Ascension was a lot easier. We as a team, threw all these names out, and Ascension was the one that stuck the most. And then I immediately left the room to go into the computer, because I had a very clear image in my head already of what the logo would look like, what the colors were going to be. And from the word Ascension, I made associations with the sky. So that's how we got the sky blue color. And I wanted the logo to show some form of progress upwards. So that's why we have an arrow within the logo, within the negative space. It just worked out that it would work as the letter A as well. So I think every design process is a bit different depending on the actual name itself. But it's just about going with your intuition as a designer, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and also talking to the team. Because although you are the graphic designer, it's not your sole responsibility to, race and compete under this name and brand. So everyone needs to have a say, I think. And it also helps the design process so much.
Yeah, and getting like uh, getting the design process like in the right place, it's essential. And as you said, like this basically moves your brand, moves your team, and you have to get that ready. But talking in a different perspective, what are the main differences of the needs for graphic design between a national finals and a world finals? Because in a national finals, mainly the teams are not as competitive on a world finals. So, what are the main differences in the graphic design area, and what can be done to be like for you to be like uh, above the average on this criteria?
So in the Australian National Finals regulations, our booth displays are only allowed to be 2 meters wide as opposed to the 3 meters wide allowed at the World Finals. And this in of itself presents a completely different challenge. With the booth display being a lot thinner, it's a lot more difficult to fit the right information in different spots, and you do have to get quite creative with those solutions. I know at our national finals we had a shelving display unit that was also utilized to show more information. It's where we had car development, our branding, logo development, all that was displayed on this little shelf tucked away almost. But it was still, front and center. It was right next to our sponsors, which kept them quite happy because they were front and center. But aside from the pit display, it's a very similar challenge taking what you have at the national finals and applying it on the world stage. But the issue is that there is a massive level of refinement that is required for the world finals. The world finals is a completely different kettle of fish, to say, and it is a challenge. It is the pinnacle of this competition, and it is difficult to compete at. Apart from that, as well, regulations themselves are different. Not even with just the pit display. I know I found it quite difficult initially to adapt to the World Finals regulations because they were so open-ended. I was very used to having the concise, very dictative regulations that we have here in Australia, and competing at something like the World Finals where, they're really trying to promote the innovation amongst teams and originality. It was very much like a field day for me where I was given so much freedom to design practically whatever I want, but still tailor it towards the competition, which was really cool.
And what do you think that like what are the main topics for Scuderia to have a good design work on social medias? Because we already have talked about the branding process, the things like that define the Scuderia itself. But another thing that is so much important is about the social media, because it's there where you show yourself and show your products, show whatever. So, what do you think that are the most important topics to have like a great design, not only visual itself, but to get a nice engagement and things like that.
Yeah, so social media is your outreach to the competition and is so vital to nail that right. Not only from a regulation standpoint, where obviously you have a requirement for a good social media presence as well as a social media plan. I've judged so many teams over the past 2 years of being outside the competition. Um, and the amount of teams that I have judged and they do not have a social media plan, target audience, upload schedule, just these basic few things. It amazes me because they're throwing away, 3 points and also their key demographics and their audience on social media. Obviously, every team wants to be the biggest on social media. I know when I was doing the social media for Ascension, I have a really, really different marketing strategy to what we had in Pentessalate. Like we had competitions. In Ascension, we had a massive outreach. Obviously, about midway through Ascension, I also started off the track, which, I personally didn't start, but I joined off the track, and obviously that really took off and greatly boosted not only our individual social media scores, but also our team social media scores. And social media is just a way to not only get back to the community, but also the sponsors. It keeps your fans updated. It keeps your sponsors updated. Keeps your sponsors happy because obviously they want to see their logo all over your stuff. And if you've got their logo on your social media, they're more inclined to sponsor you again or sponsor you with even more money next time. So social media is just such a vital part of the competition outside the 5 points it gives you.
And like being at the judging view, with the judging view of the competition itself, do you think that because we know that the social media for STEAM competitions and the real world social media strategies, there's some difference in there, and the teams there are some teams that really apply the real world strategies into the competition itself. This is this get the teams a lot of points, can get to the teams a lot of points, or it's like a few things but done great are better than applying real world strategies and not applying that. That's better, So what are the differences, and what gives the team the most points, or which one the team needs to focus on?
As a judge, it is so easy to tell if you have followed what you're writing in the portfolio. Obviously, I feel like one of the backbones of this competition is fake it till you make it. I personally tried to, fake it my way through the competition. It doesn't work. The best way through this competition is to take the theory that you're writing about and actually apply it. Those with a better social media strategy will see the results. They'll see more followers, they'll see more likes, more engagement. Their posts are going to look better. They're going to look more consistent. And the same with your graphic design philosophies. If you're saying you've done something in design, actually do it, because there is a good reason why it's a celebrated strategy for things. And I know from a judge's point of view, I've always marked the teams that are more sincere and have, really put in the work and put in the effort, significantly greater than why I mark those who have just rocked up to the competition and clearly haven't read the regulations.
And like talking about that point that you just said about engagement, we have discussed about the visual design of the social media, the branding, the things like that. And there's such an important thing that is called engagement on the social medias itself, that basically dictates the way of what a team is doing and if it is doing right correctly. So what is most importantly, I think that I already have answered that question, but in a low answer. So it's better to have a great engagement on social medias, or it's better to have a few less engagement and have a great design and things like that on the social media itself. What is the most important?
That is an awfully difficult question, I will admit. I know I as the social media manager for my team, I always strive for the greater engagement as opposed to the overall design of the page. If you check the Ascension page, the design itself isn't, you know, the greatest. There wasn't really a social media template I utilized. There is a few sponsored posts that you know, that there's a clear design behind those, but photos of the team I didn't edit, and I did try once. It did quite go out the way I planned, so I just gave up. So I think in that front, I probably have to say the engagement shows you are having a better understanding of your target audience and demographics than a better looking social media.
Yeah. So on the answer should be focus on the engagement more than on the design itself, because that should give you some more points and show the judges that you really applied all the key points of marketing and things like that to really get the knowledge necessarily to grow your social media and to grow your branding. That is correct.
Yeah, I know. I think it really depends on the team's individual social media strategy, actually. Because I know with Ascension, like I said, we strive for engagement, and that shows within a lot of our posts. Going into the World Finals, we had the most follows out of any Australian team competing that year, which I worked very hard on personally to do. Considering we started the account, I think like 6 months prior, and I think we ended up going to the World Finals with just over 550 followers or something. But judging at, say, a state level, the teams obviously aren't going to have as many followers because there are that many state teams, and the only reason we had that many followers was because we were a World Finals team, and those are the teams that, you know, the state finals teams will look up to. So I guess if you're at state finals or national finals, you'll have to put more effort into the branding itself, and a lot more into the actual design of the page. But also, you need to make sure your engagement strategy is there and present. I wouldn't say, you know, there is no award for having the most amount of followers, but you do need to understand how to gain followers and what your target audience is.
Mm-hmm. And there's, as you said, your Instagram was one of the most followed in number of followers when you went to the World Finals, and there's such a difference between the South American teams, Brazilian teams, mainly, and the European and Australian teams. That is, when you look at the social media of all of those teams, um, there's some difference between the post frequency of the teams. So it's more commonly to have less posts on Australian and European accounts, and way more posting frequency on Brazilian teams. Uh, why you think that that thing is done? Like, why they do have less frequency, and what could be their objective doing that?
I know our post frequency, we always shot for about at least one a week, if not two posts a week, which, like you say, is less than the average Brazilian team. I do think that's, I don't know, we kind of adapted that sort of 1 to 2 posts a week strategy out of the want for having constant updates, with the ability to increase as competition approaches, but not over flooding the sort of timelines and pages of our followers, because the more you post, unless they're interacting with every single post, the more it kind of gets lost in the Instagram algorithm. I know it's not something we had to really compete with, was the change in the Instagram algorithm. And it's not something I've seen teams consider all too much, because Instagram no longer goes off of newest posts. It goes off of your interactive posts or what it thinks you want to see. So I know I'd be very curious to see how that changed the engagement in the competition. But yeah, back to the question. I think it's just the Australian adaptation of not wanting to overflood, and also taking a much more relaxed approach into social media. Social media is always kind of taking the back step in Australia, where I think it really thrives in South American teams. And I always looked up to Brazilian Six with their social media, because I just thought it was fantastic. They had, posts coming out practically every single day. They had the followers to back it up. Their likes were, they were pumping out numbers not many other teams were doing at that time. And, they're still putting out really good numbers for the competition.
So being like that is basically the strategy of keeping the frequency as low, and making the algorithm the correct word should be like working together with the algorithm of Instagram, and not as like doing a lot of posts frequently, and just to do posts frequently. And talking about those posts, the content of those posts, it's like obviously it's and such an important thing, because if you don't put any content on the posts, you will not have the engagement that you are wanting for. So mainly you want a top content on each post. So those posts are like generally about F1 world or the competition world itself, or you think that the content can be like anything else, like curiosities, or I don't know, some other kind of content that is not directly related to F1 itself, but at the same time can bring some engagement from other areas? and also this kind of changes the persona type or your public or audience settings. I don't know if I can say like that, but bringing those contents can change your audience type basically. So what do you think about it? The teams should, in a general perspective, not only on Australia or Brazil or any other region. Think about that. You think that the content can be related or not to F1, and how you see that as a judge?
Um, I think the teams should certainly post more about the teams themselves. The social media is a way to introduce the world to your team and really showcase it off. And I think it's great when you post about the team more so than the competition. Sometimes, obviously, you need the main priority of the Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, whatever it may be, should still be about the competition itself. But I think sprinkling in a few of just the team itself, like half of our team that we collaborate with got invited to a Australian football game, rugby league game, and we may post about that where one of our sponsors invited us down. In Penteslate, even we we went go-karting once, and we posted about that and showcased off the team in that way. And it's I think it's great when you show things not as related to the competition, because it shows off more of the team, and also it's another post to put up. I think as long as the post has relevancy to either the team or the competition, there's no harm in uploading it. So, I think it's fantastic when people post something a little less, I don't know, serious, I guess. I remember doing some of the posts for Off the Track, and one of our most popular posts for the longest time was our April Fool's prank last year, where we said maglev wheel systems were coming in, and I rendered this picture of a car with like these horseshoe magnets as wheels during a math lesson at university. So I know I think it's great when you show personality.
Mm-hmm. And so basically, unless that you runs away of the content, of the reliability of the team, or the image itself of the personality of the team, it's like relevant content to be shown on social media, unless that it is like it's way less important or way less relative to the competition or to the team or to the personality of the team. That is right.
Yeah, 100%. I think it still needs to have relevancy to either the team or the competition. But if it can fit it in either of those two categories, I think it's fun to post and good to see.
Mm-hmm. And talking just about the World Finals, because this is basically where every professional class teams want to be, and it's the top objective of every team, basically. How to be like separated of the others? Not only here we will not be talking only about graphic design, but the entire competition. How can we show ourselves on the World Finals event without being like way away of the standard competition things? Like, you cannot be way creative, because if you are like such a creative, you can be outside of the rule book, and with that you will not be able to earn points with that creativity. So which are the main topics or the main things that a team going to the World Finals competition should be focusing on and should be looking to not mess with this on the World Finals competition?
Yeah, so with the World Finals, I know there's been quite a cookie cutter type standard over the past 5 or so years, I guess, where we've really seen the midfield of the competition to kind of blend together, and you start to see a lot of similarities. But as soon as you hit that top 10, top 5, um, it's apples to oranges at that point, and each team has their own incredibly unique identity and presence at the competition. I feel like competition presence isn't spoken about enough. Like, always having someone standing at the pit display, and the way you talk to people, the way you interact with judges, the way you showcase yourself at that competition, even the way you walk around, people are going to be judging you on your presence at that competition. Like, I remember at our World Finals, you'd see those top 5 teams walk around, and there was certainly a difference in the way they carried themselves compared to the other competitors at the competition. Focusing on graphic design, obviously a unique identity is vital. Having the best colors to showcase your brand, the most effective colors, the most effective name, something catchy. Logo needs to be easily recognizable, identifiable. It needs to translate well from big to small. Another important thing is having a logo that can showcase on a number of different backgrounds. With Ascension, we had 2 different color versions of the logos, obviously a full white one and the colored version, depending on what color the background was. And then stepping into the pit display, you want I went for something organic in terms of the shape of the display. So if you look at the Ascension display, the entire back wall is curved. It is a single element, and the entire thing just flows together. And that is something I worked a lot on to try and get. There was probably about a month or 2 of development in that backboard alone, trying to get it to be the right shape, have the right colors, and that soaked up a lot of my time. And then obviously we had a shelf up the top, and then the whole display was a very unique shape, and you see that with a lot of the top 10, top 5 teams, is they've got these unique displays on showcase at the competition. And stepping away from graphic design entirely, everyone's got their own unique design philosophy for car design, and you can tell which teams have taken inspiration from other teams and which have formulated their own ideologies with car design. Like, you look at the top 5 teams from our year, and none of them look the same. I remember, obviously we had a very thin, very sleek, very how do I word this? I don't know, like very small front area, we tried to minimize all that, and it shows off in the car design, and even the livery design itself. And then you go, I know, a couple steps upwards. I don't know if anyone remembers the Afflex Ho Centurion racing car design, but I remember, they were in the pit display next to us, and looking over at that it was such a unique design in and of itself. And going a couple steps up from that again, obviously Evolve, who won the competition, also had such a unique design that it was awfully hollowed out, very light in places, but it was all very controlled to keep the center of mass at a certain point and minimize the tipping motion and things like that. And just between those three teams, which were also, all three of those teams were the ones nominated for best engineered at our world finals, looked incredibly different and had such a different design philosophy, but all were pretty well on pace with each other on track. And I know it's very interesting when you go to a competition, you see such unique design philosophies, and it really puts your team ahead of the rest, I think, and gives you something to write about. And speaking of writing, obviously the portfolio is another place where you can really put your own spin on things, and showcase the uniqueness of your team, but also all the hard work and effort that you've put into it. So I think, in short, being unique at the competition is pretty well vital. Obviously, you don't want to go outside the bounds of the regulations, so make sure whatever you do, have those regulations in front of you after everything you do. Make sure what you are doing is adhering to those regulations, and you're not, straying too far away from the point of the competition. It's great in that to be unique, but make sure it's unique with a purpose.
Yeah, that was, I guess that was the most useful, not useful. Useful is not a word, but the better tips that someone can give to any team that is starting or that wants to be in a top of the podium on rank 5 plus. So yeah, focusing on those areas are mainly the main areas of the competition itself. But at the same time, if you get a unique identity, a unique philosophy, I guess that is the most important thing to everyone to get a really good work at the competition. That is right, that is correct. So I'm not getting anything interpreted wrong here. So, Benjamin, I would like to ask you if you had been involved during the car engineering process, assembly process, and things like that. Do you was involved?
Yeah, so in Pentesslate especially, sorry, I was, my original role in that team was design engineer. That very quickly changed to graphics designer, because the guy that was our design engineer was fantastic at engineering, and he already had a really good idea of aerodynamic concepts. Mine was a bit less than that. But, I was still involved with a lot of the car design. I, manufactured quite a few F1 schools cars as well. So not only was I for the design, I was with the manufacturing. And also, apart from that, I did the, obviously with the pit display, I had to do the engineering side for that. On the posters itself with the car information, as well as the rendering. I deal most of the rendering for Ascension as well.
And okay. So that was mainly on the Paston itself, so not entirely on Ascension, as you said. And Ascension was mostly on rendering process. Uh, I would say like paperwork of the engineering, doing like the renderings and documents that should be done correctly.
Yeah, exactly. All the manufacturing, we had a very interesting, I know, engineering philosophy at Ascension, because the car was pretty well designed, mostly by Fefe, who was our design engineer. And then, Brock Stinson had a lot of input on that as well. And then Brock was the one who ultimately manufactured it, because they had the bare mill in Penrith Christian College.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if you will know exactly how to answer that, but when we do have a process, an engineering mainly process, you have to be methodical mainly, and you need to do a scientific process, because if you don't have how to prove that your design is the better, you haven't done a scientific process, and with that you haven't done good research and development, and as this go on, you haven't done a good engineering process. So what would be a good process to be thinking of to get a great engineering process? Because I could easily go and say like, oh, now I will think about any concepts and ideas that I have, and after that, after reading a little bits of that, I will design my car and test it a few times, and that's it. That is my car. So there's mainly this idea and the idea of a scientific process, and this go on and on. So how would be the scientific process? How you think that this should be to get a great engineering process?
I know with Ascension, we actually first began with sort of a test dummy car, where it was pretty much a motion rig where, there was holes in the top where we could put different weights in it, and on the bottom there were different holes for wheels, and that way we could test both the tipping moment or center of mass of the car, and we could also test the wheel positions of the car and try and figure out what was the optimal center of mass position, and also the optimal wheel alignment position. Obviously, you can easily know the optimal center of mass position, the optimal wheel position from design theory, but it's still good to test and show that you did it in your portfolio. After having those two numbers, that really narrows down what your design can look like in terms of build, and also especially the wheel position. That's a fixed spot. So when we began the prototyping process, Fefa would sit down and utilizing 3 years of experience of designing cars up to that point. He obviously knew what shapes to look out for, what to design, and what the car should ultimately look like. But if you look at the Ascension prototypes that we had on our pit display, there were, 5 very different looking cars. And that came down to Feather being super experimental in the beginning. So he designed one, major change to a prototype and rapidly prototype the that individual car, where he would change, very, very minute details of like front wing types and rear wing types, and just changing number by number, different chord lengths, different structure sizes, all that. And there would be 4 or 5 changes depending on each individual component on the car. And at this point, we weren't overly worried about the regulations. Obviously you should still design somewhat into the regulations, but in your initial sort of prototyping phase, I wouldn't say regulations are as important to follow. I know when we began our prototyping, our regulations hadn't even come out yet, and so every prototype we had up until our final car was illegal, because it was the year they changed the rear wing to have a single structure, as opposed to what everyone had previously done at that point, which was more of a center support for a single plane. But we do. I think we had about 7 major design changes, 7 or 8 maybe, and then each of those would have 4 or 5 changes amongst the individual wings themselves, and I think it added up into a total like 200 different prototypes, and that was due to the it's called a rapid prototype developing system, where you're rapidly changing very small minute details, chucking that into safety and running that for a couple of iterations and seeing what happens. It really gives a good idea on convergence and what works and what doesn't. So that was sort of our design philosophy. Then obviously once we found the optimal design for our car, we just focused on making that legal for the regulations, and then began the manufacturing process.
Oh, sorry, my audio wasn't showing up. So getting basically with following this process, you will eventually will have a good result, a good car that will follow the rules, will be probably will be fast, and probably will have a low mass, nearly on 50 grams. So after that, we obviously goes to the manufacturing process, and that is something that can even goes very well or can be devastating to the team, because there are some minor details that can be like throw away your entire design process and can like get your car out of row, or block the wheels to spin, things like that. Then that can be really, really devastating. How to get a great manufacturing process? Because in my opinion, this is even more important than having a good engineering process itself, to manage how the car should be or how the car designs would be like. How to get the car perfectly assembled and ready to race without any imperfection.
I think, okay, first major thing that a design engineer should do within the CAD itself before even doing the manufacturing is design your car with tolerances. Obviously, thinking back to like the manufacturing process, you're painting the car, you're sanding the car. That's going to change the dimensions of the car very slightly, but we're competing in a competition where things are down to a tenth of a millimeter in terms of accuracy, and that's quite small. So designing your car with the idea in mind that it's not going to be perfect, it is vital. Having a buffer to the regulations is also extremely vital. Make sure you're not dead on the regulation when you're designing it. Allow a mil or two gap in between that and the vertical cargo or something, for example, and that way you're not going to break that regulation. Most regulations are broken during the manufacturing process, whether that's allowed weight, whether that's I remember when I was doing development class, we'd actually broken the I believe it was the wheel clearance, and our wheel itself was too close to our side pod, and we had to send that back. That was due to paint being put onto the car. So, designing with the idea in mind that your car will not turn out exactly the way you want it to is pretty key, and make sure you have those tolerances within the design. The second most important thing is, I'd say, material selection. Obviously, you want the slipperiest bearings. You want the the most frictionless wheels possible. You want the strongest front wing, the most accurate wings, or this and that. So just taking the time to research into those materials. So even talking to industry professionals or previous teams as to what they utilize within their car is pretty key. You look at most Australian teams from the past, I think, probably 8 years, or maybe a bit less than 8, 6 years, I'd say. And you notice a lot of them have one of two colors on their wheels at the World Finals. And it's either going to be a gray wheel or it's going to be this brown wheel. And it's because there's pretty much one company in Australia that does a lot of the F1 schools wheel manufacturing. And we've just learnt as a nation to just pretty much copy each other in terms of these wheels, because they're just, they're a really good wheel and material. Even apart from that, obviously picking the right paint, whether you're going to do an undercoat, a primer, whether you're doing a top coat, whether there's so many factors even in the painting process to consider. What kind of glue you're going to use. There's just a lot in that to cover. Probably picking, my one pro tip would probably pick an acrylic paint over an enamel paint. I remember we picked an enamel paint one year, and I'm pretty sure that car is still drying somewhere because it never dried properly. And that was probably 5 years ago now. Or yeah, it would have been 5 years ago, 2016. That's scary to think about. Yeah, so just taking your time researching as to what materials are going to use in that manufacturing process, and also the technique as well. If you have access to an airbrush, that is fantastic. Use an airbrush for painting is so much better than a spray can. And also, whether you're going to outsource certain components as well, we outsourced every single 3D printing component within our car, as well as the painting for our car, because as high school kids, we don't have the access to technology that provides the best finishing possible. So, I don't know, researching and outsourcing are my 2 key vital takeaways from that rant.
Yeah, and you talking about the airbrush and the canister itself, the spray paint. Here in Brazil, at least, on teams that I had saw how the manufacturing and the painting process was. It's pretty common, or the team done by themselves, and mainly with spray paints, or some of them with the airbrushes, or the team had like a sponsor that painted for them. Can you tell us what was the choice of Ascension in this case? Because when you see the Ascension car, you can see that the painting itself is really uniform, and it's pretty flat. Flat is not the word, but it's like it's linear itself, and there's a lot of vanish on it. So it was a really good paint itself. So it was you guys that had painted it, or it was like a company that made it? And what are the pros and cons about each of those processes?
Yeah, so the Ascension car itself was actually we outsourced to a smash repair shop, because I had an airbrush and everything, and obviously trained painters that paint cars for a living, and that gave us an incredible finish. But there is still a massive reason why I think a lot of teams should start with painting their own cars, and that's the amount of control you have over your car. I have 2 absolute horror stories within F1, from our car just not being painted correctly by the painters, or just something that's happened afterwards. And when you're painting your own car, you have such a finite control over the weight. You want to be as close to that 50 grams as possible on race day. And if you're painting your own car, you can get, within a tenth or two of 50 grams pretty accurately, even 100th in some cases. And the lighter your car, the quicker it's going to go. Weight is the biggest factor, or at least one of the biggest factors for F1 schools cars on the track. But I'm recalling back to one competition. We had a painter who gave us an incredible finish, but the car was 60 grams. And, that's 10 grams over the limit. We can't race that. That's going to be like, I don't know, half a second slower than any other car at the competition. And another one was with Ascension, where we had our car painted and everything, incredible finish, and it was finished a week or 2 out from the competition. And then a junior painter guy came in and sanded half the car off. Like, he looked at the bottom and it wasn't smooth enough, so he took it to the bandsaw, and you can see the bottom of the car, and half of it goes all the way up to where the underside of the car it is meeting the headline guide. So we've lost half our side pod, we've lost the rear pods, we've lost almost the entire front wing connection is gone. And to have that happen a week out from the competition, in fact, both of those cases happen a week out from the competition, it kills your momentum. It kills the team so much. I remember the morale after it occurred to us the first time with the 60-gram car. That drive home was just the most silent, dead drive home ever, because we knew exactly what had happened and exactly what had to be done. So we manufactured 3 brand new cars the weekend before the competition, and I was painting them, I think, the day before I left. I had to reconstruct side pods. I had to get the paint to dry as quick as possible. In doing so, I burnt the paint. If you look on the back of one of the Pentesla cars, there's Sharpie on it because that's where paint has been burnt off, trying to get it to dry quicker because we sat in front of an industrial light. And even look at the Ascension car is not perfect because it had to be rushed a week out from the competition. The arrow isn't quite straight. The front is ever so slightly bumpy. And those are the very minute details that, cost the team greatly in this competition. I'm just thankful for, with Penteslate, I had, Fefe helping me the weekend prior to construct 3 brand new cars, as well as a school friend of mine. And in Ascension, I'm just so thankful for the other half of the team, which didn't tell us at the time, but I think was a good thing that they didn't tell us that the car had completely messed up, because it would kill the morale for the other half of the team. And they got to work and produce 2 brand new cars, and I really, really commend them on that.
Wow, that was like that is really 2 hour histories about car manufacturing, and it really broke the morale of the entire team itself, and you get so sad about, wow, I did this car and now it is broken or something like that. So guys, pay attention at how you do the manufacturing process, mainly the manufacturing process of the car, how you paint the car. So here we can have an idea on how the painting process could be within business or someone else, or how the painting process can be when you guys do it by yourselves. So if you have the capability and the skills to do it, and you will note a better result on the car itself. So yeah, I guess that's it. We are already going a little bit more than the scheduled time. So Benjamin, do you have something else to ask or to say here?
Not really. Just I'm not sure. Take everything. Okay, take everything you can out of this competition, and really strive to do well, because this competition will take you places. The amount of things that I have been offered post competition, and obviously doing off the track and everything, is astounding. So, take this competition as a learning lesson. It'll be the best time of your life. Good luck to every team competing. And don't forget to download the Spark app.
Oh, that was a great advertising. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for your time, for your patience. I believe that this knowledge being shared here can help every single team here, even if it is a veteran team or a newbie team. And yeah, that's it. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate that. And guys, go follow Ascension here. You guys have the Instagram account of them. If not, it is here down below on the description. So thank you very much. Tomorrow or a few days from now, we will have another live stream with another guests here, and for sure there will be more knowledge to get here. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you much for your presence, and see you very much. See you soon. See you. See you soon.